Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Gardener. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's June 13th. My Aunt Debbie in Des Moines sent me some fantastic pictures of a great portable elevated planter idea. She'd been at Lowe's and they had taken two old Weber grills, had spray painted them different colors, and then turned them into planters. And then in between the two of them, they'd placed a bench. But what a fantastic idea. What a great way to repurpose old grills, turn them into elevated beds that you could use for annuals, which is what they did. And in my case, I'm thinking, oh, what a fun way to have a small edible or herb garden right by your grill. Here's today's brevities. It's the birthday of Martha Washington, born on this day in 1731. The kitchen garden at Mount Vernon was said to have been Martha Washington's personal pride. Surrounded by 4-inch brick walls, her garden was protected, and it also enjoyed a bit of a microclimate. In addition to the walls, there were pear trees and apple trees that lined the walkways and provided a windbreak for the vegetables. And there was even a cistern placed in the center of the garden in order to provide the garden with a steady supply of water. One expert stated, Mrs. Washington had a passion for gardening, and her summer residence at the Hasbrook House allowed her to indulge in it. One admirer said, under her skillful hands bloomed a garden like the desert of the scriptures. And it was on this day in 1832 that George Thurtell held his ranunculus show. It was said that Thurtell had exhibited between 700 and 800 blooms, including 360 varieties. They were preeminent in beauty, variety, color, form, and size. 14 years after his ranunculus show, Thurtell was fined for horsewhipping a journalist on April 30th, 1846. 2 years later, he pled guilty to stealing from a house where he was employed as a gardener. He was sentenced to 12 months imprisonment, and he died serving his sentence. And it was on this day in 1833, David Douglas's luck ran out. On the rocky islands of the Fraser River at Fort George Canyon, Douglas's canoe was smashed into bits, and Douglas himself barely escaped alive. All of Douglas's work, his specimens, and all of his writings, covering the years from 1829 to 1833, were lost to time. Before losing all of his work, in the spring of that year, Douglas had written, "We can be carried into regions where we contemplate the most glorious workmanship of nature, and where the dullest imagination becomes excited." In today's Unearthed Words, here's The Rose Tree by William Butler Yeats, who was born on this day in 1865. "Oh, words are lightly spoken," said Pierce to Connolly. "Maybe a breath of politic words has withered our rose tree, or maybe but a wind that blows across the bitter sea." "It needs to be but watered," James Connolly replied, "to make the green come out again and spread on every side, and shake the blossom from the bud to be the garden's pride." "But where can we draw water," said Pierce to Connolly, "when all the wells are parched away? Oh, plain as plain can be, there's nothing but our own red blood can make a right rose tree." And here's a sweet diary entry by Canadian naturalist Charles Joseph Sariel, who wrote these words on this day in 1938. "A beautiful June day, the kind of day which has made June's reputation. Tonight, I finished my flower beds entirely. How pleasant it is to water from a hose when one has known the effort of hauling water, pail by pail. Today's book recommendation is The Flower Fix, Modern Arrangements for a Daily Dose of Nature by Anna Potter, with photographs by India Hobson. The Flower Fix is a new book out in May of this year. Potter arranges easy-to-find seasonal blooms, along with found items such as twigs and dried fruit. And she uses all kinds of containers. Potter is a florist at Swallows and Damson. You can get your daily flower fix with her inspiring arrangements. For today's garden chore, sow some love in a mist or nigella in your garden. It's one of my favorite flowers, and I know I'm not alone. It is such a romantic blossom. It's a member of the buttercup family. Although it comes in white, pink, and lavender, most gardeners are blown away by the blue version of Love in a Mist. It's a favorite with pollinators, and it's self-seeding, which, if you're lucky, will bring you more love in a mist through the years. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day in 1831 that the scientist James Clerk Maxwell was born. He is remembered for his formulation of the classical theory of electromagnetic radiation. In 1922, when Albert Einstein visited the University of Cambridge, his host announced that he had done great things because he stood on Isaac Newton's shoulders. Einstein replied, "No, I don't. I stand on the shoulders of Maxwell." In 1879, Maxwell wrote a letter to his friend William Thomson, a letter gardeners can delight in. Here's what it said: "Peacocks as gardeners." We got our original stock from Mrs. McCunn at Ard Hollow. At the time, 1860, the garden there was the finest on the coast, and the peacocks sat on the parapets and banks near the house. Mr. McCunn was very fond of his garden and very particular about it, but he also cared for his peacocks, and whenever he went out, he had bits of bread and such for them. Mrs. Maxwell, my wife, always gets the peacocks to choose the gardener, and they have chosen one who has now been 7 years with us. The peacocks will eat the young cabbages, but the gardener tells them to go, and they find it pleasanter to be about the house and to sit on either side of the front door. Mrs. Maxwell will not send them to you unless, on consideration, they would be acceptable. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up, and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.